Life wasn't anything special for me. My name's Michelle, and at 27, you'd usually find me tucked away in the local library. It wasn't exciting or glamorous, but it was mine. Books were my friends, and the dusty shelves were my world. I didn't like being the center of attention, and I was okay with blending into the background. The town was small, the kind where everyone knows your business before you do. My routine was simple. Wake up, work, and then head home to my tiny apartment full of secondhand furniture and piles of books. I didn't have much of a social life, and I told myself I was fine with that. Then one day, Jack walked into the library. It was a day just like any other. He was looking for a book, something different, he said. He smiled easily, and his voice was warm, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Hey, can you help me find a book? I'm feeling adventurous, he said, with a friendly smile.
Sure.
What kind of book are you looking for? I asked, adjusting my glasses, trying not to get distracted by him. I don't know, surprise me, he said with a grin, like he enjoyed the little challenge he gave me. That was the start of everything. Our chats became part of my daily life. At first, it was about books, but soon we talked about more personal things. Jack was different. He really listened, and it made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in a long time. One day, he came in looking more determined than usual. Michelle, you're the most interesting person I've met in this town. Why do you stay hidden in here all the time? He asked, leaning on the counter with a playful smile. I laughed, surprised by the sound of my own laughter. Well, where else would I go? There's not much excitement in this town. Jack quickly replied, maybe you just need someone to explore it with. How about dinner tonight? My treat. I hesitated, not used to this kind of attention. I don't know, Jack. Come on. What's the worst that could happen? You spend an evening with a guy who likes your book recommendations. Plus, I promise it'll be fun. You can show me the hidden gems in this town, he said, his confidence contagious. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Okay, sure, but no fancy places. I don't do well with all that fancy stuff, Jack said, his smile lighting up the room. I'll pick you up at 5. Wear something comfortable. That night changed everything. Jack showed me parts of the town I had never seen, even though I had lived here all my life. He made me laugh, a deep, real laugh that I didn't know I could. He listened to my stories, dreams, and fears, never making me feel small or unimportant. As we walked back to my apartment, he stopped and looked at me seriously. Michelle, I know we've only just met, but there's something about you. You're not like anyone I've ever known. You're real, and that's rare in a world full of fakes.
I didn't know what to say.
No one had ever talked to me like that before. Jack, he gently stopped me, putting a finger on my lips. You don't have to say anything. Just know that I see you. Michelle, I see who you are, and I like what I see. Jack had always been the best part of my day, making everything brighter with his care and love. He made me feel noticed, calling me beautiful, kind, and smart, things I rarely believed about myself. His warmth made me believe in forever and want it. When he asked me to marry me, it felt like a dream. Marry me, Michelle. I can't imagine my life without you, he said, his eyes full of sincerity. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said, feeling excited and surprised. But before we could start planning our wedding, we had to meet his parents. Jack had warned me beforehand. My parents have high standards for who I bring home, but don't worry. They're going to love you once they see how great you are, he said. But his words didn't calm me. I was nervous and searched my wardrobe for something simple but nice. It felt like there was no perfect dress to choose. Jack stayed calm, acting like he wasn't worried about the meeting. You're overthinking it, Michelle. Just wear what you're comfortable in, he said, which made me even more nervous. The day came, and I chose a simple blue dress that I hoped was just right. As we drove to his parents' house, Jack seemed more interested in the music on the radio than meeting them. You sure they're going to like me? I asked, needing some reassurance. They'll come around. Just be yourself, Jack replied, glancing at me before focusing back on the road. His relaxed attitude was a sharp contrast to the anxiety building inside me. As we walked up to the door of Jack's childhood home, my heart was racing. His earlier warnings echoed in my mind, making me nervous about the judgment I was about to face. The door opened, and we were greeted by Jack's parents, their expressions hard to read. Dinner felt tense. Jack's parents asked me questions that felt more like an interview than a casual conversation. "So, Michelle, Jack says you work at a library. Do you see yourself doing that long-term?" his dad asked, his tone hinting that he didn't think much of my job. I stumbled for an answer, trying to stay confident. "I love working there. It's fulfilling in ways I can't quite explain," I said, hoping my passion would be enough. Jack stayed quiet through most of it, offering little help as I faced question after question. It felt like I was handling everything on my own, while Jack just watched. On the drive home, the silence was heavy. I was disappointed, not just with the dinner, but with Jack's lack of support. "I thought you said they'd warm up to me," I finally said, my voice tinged with hurt. Jack shrugged. "Give it time, Michelle. They just need to get to know you better," he said, but it didn't comfort me. After a few more dinners that felt like interrogations, it was clear his parents weren't my biggest fans. They seemed to think I was after Jack's money, which wasn't true at all. I hadn't even known about his wealth until he mentioned it. "My parents are a bit old-fashioned," he told me one night. "They worry about stuff like money and status." One evening, Jack came home looking more serious than usual. "We need to talk," he said, avoiding eye contact. That's when I knew something was wrong. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling uneasy. "It's my parents," he said, finally looking at me. "They want us to sign a prenup." The word felt strange and bitter in my mouth. "Jack, you know I don't care about your money, right?" He sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I know, and I don't care about it either, but they're firm about it. They think it's for the best." I was hurt, not going to lie. It felt like they were already expecting us to fail. But I loved Jack more than I cared about his parents' approval or a piece of paper. "Fine," I said, giving in. I snapped. "Fine, let's just sign it and get it over with. I don't care about the money, yours, mine, whatever. I just want to be with you." Jack looked relieved, and a part of me resented that.
"Thank you, babe."
"I hate this as much as you do, but it's just a piece of paper. It won't change anything between us," he said. So we signed it. A lawyer his parents knew prepared it, making sure we couldn't touch each other's things if things went wrong. It felt like we were signing a contract of distrust before even starting our life together. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I was in love, and love was supposed to fix everything, right? Our wedding was simple, just the way I wanted. A few close friends, an intimate ceremony, and the promise of forever. I moved into Jack's house after the wedding. It was a nice place, nothing too fancy, but it felt worlds away from my old apartment. His parents lived nearby, and I soon learned that meant unannounced visits, which felt more like check-ins on me. At first, life with Jack felt like a fairy tale, but slowly, the magic faded and reality set in. It wasn't sudden, but there were signs. The first crack came from his mom, Olivia. She dropped by without notice, looking around the house like she was inspecting it. "Remember, this is Jack's house. Everything here belongs to him," she'd say. I tried to stay calm. "I know, Olivia. I'm not here for his things. I love him." She scoffed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, dear. Just remember, if you ever leave, you leave with what you came with, nothing." One day, she walked around the house, pointing at everything. "This couch? Jack's. That painting? Also Jack's. Just keep in mind, if things go south, you have no claim on any of it," she said with a fake sweetness. It was like she enjoyed reminding me I didn't belong. Jack's dad, Jerry, wasn't any better. He and Olivia acted like they owned the place. They'd walk in, demand coffee right away, complain it was too weak or too strong, and then sit in front of the TV, expecting me to serve them. "Grab us some chips, will you? And maybe do those clothes piling up," Jerry would say, without even looking at me. The worst part? Jack never stood up for me. He'd laugh along with them, throwing in his own jokes. "Yeah, she's still learning how to do things right around here. Give her time," he'd say. I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't the man I fell in love with. I felt like I had married someone completely different, someone cold and uncaring. "Do you even hear yourself? How can you let them treat me like this?" I confronted Jack after his parents left. Babe, they're just set in their ways. You know how older people are, he'd say, brushing it off like I was making a big deal out of nothing. They don't mean anything by it. Plus, we're living on their dime. Can't bite the hand that feeds, right? That hit me hard, like a slap in the face. So that was it. I was just the freeloader, the girl who married into their little empire and had to follow their rules or leave. My job at the library, which I loved, was a joke to them, just another reason to look down on me. The days blurred together, each one feeling the same as the last. Then came an ordinary Tuesday that changed everything. I was at work shelving books when a sharp pain hit my stomach, doubling me over. This wasn't just stress, it was something worse. Next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, the smell of antiseptic in the air. Lying in that bed, I couldn't stop thinking how low things had gotten. I was alone in pain and hadn't heard a single word from Jack. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, a knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Michelle Jackson? The man at the door wore a suit and held a briefcase, looking completely out of place in the hospital room. Yeah, that's me. Who are you? I asked, my voice weak from the pain and constant disappointment. I'm Jacob Elordi, a notary. I have something important to discuss with you, he said formally, though something in his eyes made me want to listen. I nodded for him to continue, curious despite the situation. It's about your great-uncle, Stephen Jackson. He passed away recently, and well, you're his sole heir, Michelle. He left you an inheritance. At first, his words didn't make sense. Are you sure you've got the right person? I haven't seen him in 17 years. Jacob nodded. I'm sure. He was a private man, but he always remembered you. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of. Lying there, a mix of confusion and anticipation washed over me as I watched him open his briefcase and pull out the documents. Your great-uncle was quite wealthy. He left you a significant inheritance. We're not just talking about money here, though there is plenty of that $70 million to be exact. I blinked, struggling to process the words. $70 million? $70 million? I repeated, my voice cracking. That's right, Jacob continued, unfazed by my shock. But there's more. You're also inheriting shares in several large companies. These aren't small investments, these are significant stakes in some of the most stable and profitable firms. My mind was spinning, trying to grasp what he was saying. Owning parts of companies I'd only heard about on the news seemed like a dream. And there's the property, Jacob went on, flipping through more papers. An old, large house in one of the most prestigious areas. It's not just any house, Michelle, it's a mansion with history, acres of land, and it's all yours now. I try to picture it, the kind of house you only see in movies. It was overwhelming. Don't forget the antique car, he added with a small smile, as if anticipating my surprise. It's a fully restored classic in mint condition. A collector's dream. I chuckled at the absurdity of it all. An antique car too? What am I going to do with that? I hardly even drive. Jacob's smile grew. It's yours to do with as you please. Maybe take it for a spin now and then. And there's the furniture and art inside the house, genuine antiques, some centuries old. Your great-uncle had a real eye for the finer things in life. The room seemed to close in as I tried to process everything. So, I've inherited a fortune, a mansion, a classic car, and valuable art and furniture? This doesn't seem real. It's all yours, Michelle. Your great-uncle wanted to make sure you were taken care of. He must have seen something special in you. Special? I didn't feel special, especially lying in a hospital bed after the worst few months of my life. Yet here I was, suddenly a millionaire with a legacy I didn't even know existed. Thank you, Mr. Lordy, I said, feeling a mix of gratitude and disbelief. This is a lot to take in. I don't even know where to start. We'll take it one step at a time, he reassured me. I'm here to guide you through the whole process. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Jack's name flashed on the screen for the first time in days. I ignored it and turned back to Jacob. What happens now? We'll need to go through some paperwork, but the inheritance is officially yours. Your life is about to change, Michelle. And change it did. After the sudden windfall, Jack and his parents seemed to transform overnight. Their daily hospital visits felt like scenes from a cheesy movie. Jack, who couldn't be bothered to check on me before, was now hovering constantly, adjusting my blanket with a fake concerned look. "How are you feeling today, love?" he'd ask, his voice dripping with a sweetness that didn't reach his eyes. His mother, Olivia, was even more dramatic, calling me darling and acting overly concerned. "I'm going to cook your favorite lasagna when you get back home. Just you wait," Olivia said, her smile wide but not quite reaching her eyes. It all felt too much, too fast, but I played along, smiling weakly and thanking them for their care. Still, something gnawed at me, making me suspicious of their act. One day, after their usual visit, I found the strength to follow them. My heart raced with every step. Hiding behind a corner, I listened as their real selves came out, now that they thought no one was watching. The first thing I heard was their laughter, harsh and cruel. "Can you believe how easy it is? She's so dumb. She's falling for it all," Jack said, laughing. Olivia's voice was sharper, more calculating. "Make sure she has a baby with you, Jack. Once she does, she'll never be able to leave, and we'll have a real grip on her and her money." Their words were cold and cruel, but I wasn't shocked. Disappointed?
Yes.
Surprised? Not at all. They had finally shown their true colors, and I was done pretending they were anything else. I quietly slipped back to my hospital bed, their words fueling a fire inside me. They saw me as a way to secure their future, a tool to get what they wanted. But I wasn't going to play along, not anymore. As I lay there, a plan formed, clear and firm. I was going to turn the tables on Jack and his family. They underestimated me, but they were about to see how wrong they were. After being discharged and returning home, I felt like a stranger walking into what was supposed to be my own house. Jack and his parents were waiting for me, their faces full of fake concern. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Jack broke the silence first, his voice laced with false sweetness and greed. "Babe, you're home. How are you feeling? We've been so worried about you." Ignoring the tightness in my throat, I met his gaze directly. I no longer saw the man I once loved. "I'm feeling better, thanks. But we need to talk, all of us," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Olivia, ever the actress, stepped forward, her hands clasped like she was praying. "Of course, dear. We're here for you, whatever you need." It was now or never. I took a deep breath and laid out my cards. "I'm filing for divorce, Jack. And before you ask, no, you won't see a dime of my inheritance." The room went dead silent, as if all the air had been sucked out. Jack's face turned pale, his mask slipping to show the panic underneath. "Divorce?
But why?"
"I thought we were happy," he stammered. "Happy." The word felt bitter in my mouth. "You, your mom, and your dad have made my life a living hell. You've treated me like a servant, not a wife. Now, all of a sudden, you care about me because I'm worth something to you." Jack fumbled for words, but Olivia quickly stepped in. "This is nonsense. We've always treated you like family. You're imagining things, dear." I rolled my eyes and pulled the prenuptial agreement from my bag, waving it in front of him. "This is what saved me. You thought you could fool me, but I'm not the naive girl you took me for." Jerry, who had been silent until now, finally spoke, his voice filled with anger and defeat. "You'll regret this. We're your family." "No," I said firmly. "You were never my family. A real family doesn't treat someone like dirt and then act sweet when money is involved. I'm done." Moving into my own place felt like a breath of fresh air. The apartment was small and cozy, a complete contrast to the life I had left behind. It wasn't just a new home, it was my declaration of independence, a fresh start. The phone call started almost immediately. Jack was the first, his voice desperate.
"Michelle, please.
You've got to come back. We can work this out." "I know we can." His pleas fell on deaf ears. I was done, and no amount of begging would change that. "Jack, it's over. I'm not coming back. You need to accept that," I said firmly, leaving no room for discussion. Soon after, Olivia called, her tone a mix of anger and guilt. "Ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, You owe us, Michelle. You're making a huge mistake. Owe you for what, Olivia? For making me feel like nothing? No, I don't owe you anything.
Goodbye.
Hanging up on her felt like shedding a heavy weight, a final break from the chains that tied me to a miserable life. The divorce was a relief, a clean break from a past that had tried to destroy me. I heard about the fallout between Jack and his parents, and the irony wasn't lost on me. The very prenup they had insisted on was now the cause of their family drama. With my great-uncle's inheritance safely in my name, I found a new sense of purpose and generosity. I donated a large portion to charities that mattered to me, supporting causes that could make a real difference. But my true passion became the bookstore. It was a cozy place for people who loved old and rare books, a way for me to reconnect with the world on my own terms. My journey hadn't been easy. It was filled with challenges and heartbreak. But standing in my bookstore, surrounded by the stories of others, I knew I had found my happy ending. It wasn't just about moving on from Jack and his family's control. It was about rediscovering who I was and what I loved. Here's to new beginnings, I whispered to myself one quiet evening after closing the shop. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape, full of possibilities and the promise of happiness.